The voice cut through the low hum of the aircraft, sharp and laced with barely contained fury. General Marcus Cole, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, stood rigid, his dress blues immaculate despite the unfolding apocalypse, knuckles white, where he gripped the edge of the polished conference table. His glare was fixed on Dr. Eris Thorne, the National Security Advisor, who met the gaze with a coolness that bordered on the reptilian. Thorne, dressed in a bespoke suit that somehow seemed offensively pristine under the circumstances, adjusted his glasses almost languidly. "I advise the President that attempting to re-establish contact with European Command was strategically imperative, General," Thorne replied, his voice smooth, devoid of the panic simmering just beneath the surface in everyone else. "We need situational awareness. Flying blind over the Pacific serves no one." "Flying blind?" Cole slammed a hand flat on the table, making the secure comms unit rattle. Coffee sloshed in nearby mugs. "Doctor, my situational awareness tells me that every major command center that's broadcast in the clear in the last 12 hours has gone silent 30 minutes later. NORAD is gone. STRATCOM is gone. EUCOM hasn't answered a priority 1 flash. For 6 hours. You didn't establish contact. You painted a goddamn bullseye on this fucking plane." Air Force One, designated SAM 28,000 for this flight carrying the President, cleaved through the stratosphere somewhere over the vast, uncaring blue of the Pacific Ocean. Below, twilight was probably painting the waves, but up here, at 43,000 feet, the sky was a deep bruised purple fading to black, stars twinkling in the night. It had started 18 hours ago, or maybe longer. First came the fragmented reports, dismissed initially as sensor ghosts or atmospheric interference. Then the visuals. Objects, impossibly fast, utterly silent, maneuvering in ways that defied known physics, appearing over major cities, not attacking initially, just appearing. Then, widespread silence. Communications blackouts rolled across continents like malevolent fog. Power grids failed, satellites blinked out. And then, the brief, terrifying glimpses relayed by dying news feeds or scrambled military channels. Destruction on an unimaginable scale. Structures vaporized to dust, oceans boiling, energy pulses erasing entire city blocks. There were no demands, no explanations. Plain erasure. President Jonathan Hayes sat at the head of the table, looking older than his 62 years. His face was ashen, eyes red-rimmed behind his own glasses. He hadn't slept. Nobody had, not really. Catnaps fueled by adrenaline and caffeine didn't count. He rubbed his temples. "Eris," the president began, his voice raspy, tired. "Was broadcasting truly necessary? Couldn't we have tried passive listening first? General Cole has a point about the transmission risk." Thorne shifted slightly, a flicker of something. Impatience? Condescension? Crossing his features before being smoothed away. "Mr. President, passive listening yielded nothing but static and, frankly, the panicked final screams of dying networks. A directed encrypted burst towards known EUCOM frequencies was a calculated risk. If any allied command structure remains viable, they need to know we remain viable. Leadership requires visibility, even now, especially now." "Leadership requires survival, Doctor," Cole shot back, leaning across the table. "And survival means not inviting whatever the hell is down there up here for a closer look. This plane, this office," he gestured towards the president, "is potentially the last bastion of the United States government. We protect it. Period. That means radio silence. Emission control. Minimum necessary comms, maximum security posture." Maria Flores, the chief of staff, stepped subtly between the two men. A formidable presence in her own right, her dark pantsuit seemed almost like armor. "Gentlemen, please, lower your voices. We're all under immense strain." Her eyes flickered towards the secure door leading out of the conference room. Beyond it, the rest of the plane housed dozens of personnel. Secret Service agents, communications specialists, flight crew, military aides, medical staff, a skeletal press corps contingent, now utterly irrelevant. Panic was contagious. "Strain?" Cole scoffed, though he did lower his volume marginally. "Maria, We are hours past strain. We are in terra incognita. We have reports, unconfirmed but credible, of phenomena over Russia, China, similar patterns. London is silent. Paris is silent. Tokyo. God, Tokyo went dark 3 hours ago while we were still over the continental US. This isn't a conventional war. It's... He trailed off, unable to voice the word. Extinction. A soft chime interrupted the tension. All eyes snapped towards the integrated comms panel. Master Sergeant Ben Carter, head of the communications team on board, appeared on one of the smaller screens, his face pale and taut. He looked barely 30, but the last day had aged him a decade. Mr. President General, Carter said, his voice strained but professional. Sir, we picked up something. On the frequency Dr. Thorne authorized. A collective intake of breath. Thorne allowed himself a minuscule, tight smile. You see, General, calculated risk. What is it, Sergeant? President Hayes leaned forward, his fatigue momentarily forgotten. It's garbled, sir. Heavily distorted. Seems automated. Repeating loop. Audio only, no data signature I can recognize. Encrypted maybe, but not with any code we use or are keyed for. It's... Well, sir, you should probably hear it. Carter fiddled with something off-screen. Silence descended again, thick and heavy, broken only by the faint whine of the avionics and the rush of air past the fuselage. Then, static erupted from the conference room speakers, followed by a sound that chilled the blood. It wasn't words, not in any human language. It was a series of clicks, whistles, and deep guttural chimes arranged in a complex, repeating pattern. It sounded ancient, alien, and utterly terrifyingly intelligent. Beneath the alien signal, almost buried in the noise, was something else. A faint, rhythmic pulse. Thump, 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 thump. Major Kenji Tanaka, the president's military aide, standing unobtrusively near the bulkhead, stiffened almost imperceptibly. He exchanged a quick, worried glance with David Chen, the lead Secret Service agent, who stood near the door, his hand never far from the concealed weapon beneath his jacket. Chen's eyes scanned the room, assessing not external threats, but internal ones. The strain was showing on everyone. What the hell is that? Hayes whispered, leaning closer to the speaker. Thorne frowned, tilting his head. The primary signal is unknown, obviously. The rhythmic pulse underneath, seismic, or perhaps... Cole cut him off. Or perhaps it's the bastards digging in after wiping out Stuttgart, he said grimly, referencing the last confirmed report from UCOM before it went dark. Sergeant Carter, can you isolate that secondary pulse? Analyze its frequency origin? Trying. General? Carter replied, his brow furrowed in concentration on the screen. It's faint, almost masked by the primary signal's harmonics. Doesn't seem terrestrial in origin, the propagation. It's weird, sir. No Doppler shift I can measure accurately, which makes no sense unless the source is stationary relative to us, or moving at relativistic speeds, or the signal isn't propagating through normal space-time. Thorne finished quietly, voicing the thought no one else dared. Fascinating. Cut the transmission, Sergeant, Cole ordered sharply. Now, log the frequency, log the signal characteristics, but shut it down. We've broadcast our position, heard gibberish, and learned nothing useful except that something is out there using frequencies we know. Shut it down. General, with respect, Thorne interjected, turning to the president. This is useful. It's the first non-human, potentially intelligent signal we've received. We need to analyze it. Attempt decryption. Attempt decryption? Cole exploded again, his voice regaining its parade ground volume. Are you insane? For all we know, that signal contains a virus, a mimetic weapon, God knows what. We are in a sealed environment. You do not invite the contamination in. General Cole has operational command authority in this specific matter, Eris, President, Hayes said, his voice regaining a measure of firmness. He looked at Carter's image on the screen. Sergeant, comply with the General's order. Cease reception of that signal. Maintain strict MCON. Yes, Mr. President. Wilco, General. Carter's image blinked out. Thorne pressed his lips together into a thin white line but said nothing further. The air in the room felt thick enough to choke on. The alien clicks and chimes echoed in the sudden silence, replaced only by the hum of the plane and the frantic pounding of hearts. David Chen shifted his weight slightly. His earpiece, usually relaying mundane updates from his team dispersed throughout the aircraft, had been mostly silent, punctuated only by terse status checks. Now, a low murmur came through. He listened intently for a moment, his expression unchanging, a mask of professional calm honed over years of service. He subtly touched the transmit button on his wrist comm. "Sitrep?" he murmured, his voice barely audible above the ambient noise. The reply was equally quiet, tight with tension. "Agent Chen." "Sir, we have a situation developing aft, near the staff quarters." Raised voices, Major Billings from the security detail, and some of the junior staffers. Talk about diverting. Talk about disagreeing with command. Chen's blood ran cold. Billings, Air Force Security Forces, part of the expanded detail brought aboard for contingency. Ex-para-rescue. Tough, capable, but known for a stubborn streak and belief in decisive, often unilateral, action. If he was losing his cool... Specifics? Chen breathed into his mic. Talking about heading south. Australia, New Zealand. Saying heading towards known bunkers like Cheyenne Mountain or Raven Rock is suicide. Flying straight into the fire. Saying command is compromised. Listening to Thorne... The voice in his ear hesitated. Saying maybe POTUS isn't fit to command anymore. Mutiny. The word hung unspoken, but everyone knew it. Here, at 43,000 feet, with the world, ending below, the carefully constructed hierarchy that kept them all alive was threatening to shatter. He looked at the president, slumped slightly in his chair, the picture of exhaustion and crushing responsibility. He looked at Cole, ramrod straight, but with a tremor of rage or fear in his hands. He looked at Thorne, analytical and cold, perhaps dangerously detached. He looked at Flores, trying desperately to hold the center. Who was fit to command? The question itself felt like treason. "Maintain observation," Chen ordered quietly. "Do not engage unless threat escalates. Keep comms open. I'm informing the president." He straightened up, catching Maria Flores' eye. He gave a subtle, almost imperceptible shake of his head. She understood immediately. Her face, already pale, lost. Another shade. "Mr. President," Chen said, stepping forward, his voice low but clear, cutting through the residual tension from the argument about the signal. "Sir, Agent Davies reports a disagreement among some personnel aft, raised voices, discussion about our current course and command decisions." He chose his words carefully, avoiding inflammatory terms, but the implication was unavoidable. President Hayes looked up, his eyes focusing slowly, as if returning from a great distance. "Disagreement?" General Cole spun around, his face thunderous. "What kind of disagreement, Agent Chen? Be specific." "Sir," Chen met the general's eyes squarely. "Concerns about our destination. Concerns about leadership. Major Billings is involved," Cole swore under his breath, a string of harsh, clipped curses. "Billings, God damn it! Always thought that man was wound too tight. Maria, get Billings up here now, and the senior NCO for the security detail." "General, perhaps a direct confrontation isn't wise right now," Flores cautioned, her hand hovering over the internal phone system. "People are scared. Pulling Billings out might escalate things." "Scared?" Cole shot back. "We're all scared. That doesn't excuse insubordination. This is Air Force One, damn it, not a debating society. Discipline must be maintained, or we're all dead." "The general is correct, Maria," President Hayes said, pushing himself straighter in his chair. Some fire returned to his eyes. "We cannot tolerate a breakdown in the chain of command. Get Major Billings and Master Sergeant Henderson, is it? Get them both to the conference room immediately. Agent Chen, have your team ensure corridors are clear, but remain non-confrontational unless absolutely necessary." "Yes, Mr. President," Chen acknowledged, relaying the orders quietly into his. Wristcom. As Flores made the call, the conference room door hissed open. It wasn't Billings or Henderson, it was Colonel Eva Rostova, the aircraft commander. Her flight suit showed wrinkles from hours on the flight deck. Her expression was grim, etched with fatigue, but her eyes were sharp, alert. She held a folded printout in her hand. "Mr. President, General," she said, her voice calm but carrying undeniable authority within her domain. The aircraft itself. "Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this." She didn't wait for permission, laying the printout on the table. It was a satellite weather overlay, integrated with their flight path. "Standard procedure," Rostova explained, pointing to a section of the map. "We've been monitoring atmospheric conditions. There's an anomaly directly ahead, along our projected track towards Hawaii." On the map, amidst the usual swirls of cloud cover and pressure systems, was a rapidly expanding zone of nothing. Not just clear air, but a complete lack of any energy signature. Thermal, electromagnetic, even background radiation seemed suppressed. It was a void, growing outwards from a point roughly 200 nautical miles ahead of them. "What is that?" Hayes asked, leaning over the map. "We don't know, sir," Rostova replied flatly. "It wasn't there 30 minutes ago. It's expanding at approximately Mach 3. Standard weather radar doesn't penetrate it. Infrared shows nothing, just cold. Colder than the surrounding stratosphere should be. Our SIGINT technicians." She nodded towards the comms section beyond. "The conference room. Report extreme broadband absorption within the zone. Nothing gets out. We suspect nothing gets in either." Thorne peered at the map, his earlier coolness replaced by intense curiosity. "A localized energy sink? Or some kind of field effect? Technologically generated, obviously." "Obviously," Cole growled. "And directly in our path. Colonel, can we divert?" Rostova shook her head, tapping another printout she produced. Fuel projections. "Not easily, General. Our last deviation to avoid that plasma storm over California cost us significant reserves. We were banking on refueling at Hickam. This void, as you call it, is expanding rapidly. A diversion north or south would add hours to our flight time, pushing our fuel endurance to critical limits. We'd be landing on fumes, assuming we can even find a viable runway anywhere further west. Everything beyond Hawaii is uncertain." "Uncertain?" Cole barked a harsh laugh. "Colonel, Wake Island is reporting seismic events that don't match any geological scale. Guam hasn't responded in 2 hours. Hickam itself, we don't know its status for sure. The last message was garbled, something about structures liquefying." "So we fly into that?" Flores asked, horrified, pointing at the growing black splotch on the map. "It may be our only option besides ditching in the middle of the Pacific," Rostova stated calmly. "We continue on course, monitor the anomaly's boundary. If it stabilizes or dissipates, we proceed to Hickam, assuming it still exists. If it continues to expand and engulf our path, we'll have to make a decision. Fly through it or turn back towards whatever is left of the West Coast." The conference room door opened again. This time, it was Major Billings and Master Sergeant Henderson. Billings was tall, powerfully built, his jaw set, eyes defiant. Henderson, older, weathered, looked deeply uncomfortable, caught between loyalty to his men and the chain of command. They stood framed in the doorway, flanked unobtrusively by 2 Secret Service agents from Chen's detail. "Major Billings, Master Sergeant Henderson, reporting as ordered, sir," Henderson said formally, his voice tight. Billings just stared at General Cole, his gaze hard. Cole ignored Henderson, fixing his attention on the Major. "Major Billings, Agent, Chen informs me you've been voicing strong opinions regarding this aircraft's destination and command structure. Care to elaborate?" Billings didn't flinch. "Yes, General, I have, sir." The "sir" sounded like an afterthought, almost insolent. "With all due respect, flying towards known targets like Hickam or the mainland bunkers is tactical insanity. Whatever. Hit the major command centers knew where they were. They'll know where we're likely to run. It's predictable. It's suicide." "And what's your alternative, Major?" President Hayes asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "South, Mr. President. Billings. said, turning his gaze to Hayes, though his tone remained challenging. Australia. Remote bases. Less strategic value initially. Buy us time. Regroup. Find allies. This plane has the range. Continuing on this course, especially with that, he gestured towards Rostova's map, ahead of us, is playing their game. The decision of this aircraft's destination rests with the President, advised by his staff and the aircraft commander, Cole stated icily. It does not rest with junior officers fomenting dissent among the enlisted personnel and civilian staff. Dissent? Billings bristled. Sir, people are terrified. They see us flying towards oblivion based on pre-invasion protocols. They hear transmissions being sent out against military advice, he shot a look at Thorne, potentially broadcasting our exact location. They see indecision. They need leadership that adapts, General, not leadership sticking to a playbook written for a war we aren't fighting. Are you questioning my orders, Major? Cole stepped closer, his voice dropping to a menacing growl. The two military men were inches apart, radiating hostility. I'm questioning the logic, General, Billings shot back, refusing to back down. I'm questioning flying into a damn black hole based on hope. Enough! President Hayes slammed his hand on the table harder this time. The sound cracked through the tension like a gunshot. Everyone froze. Major Billings, you are relieved of your security oversight duties, effective immediately. Master Sergeant Henderson, you will ensure the Major is escorted to his assigned quarters and remains there. Confine him if necessary. Ensure the rest of the security detail understands that discipline will be maintained. Is that clear? Henderson swallowed hard. Sir, yes, Mr. President, crystal clear. He looked at Billings, a mixture of frustration and resignation in his eyes. Billings opened his mouth to protest, his face flushed with anger, but Chen subtly shifted his stance, one hand moving fractionally closer to his sidearm. The message was unmistakable. Billings clamped his jaw shut, vibrating with fury, but nodded curtly. He turned and walked out, Henderson trailing miserably behind him. The Secret Service agents fell in step. The door hissed shut, leaving an even heavier silence in its wake. The near mutiny had been quashed for now. But the fear, the doubt, the fracturing of unity, it was palpable. Colonel Rostova, Hayes said, his voice strained but firm. Maintain present course. Keep us informed of any change in the anomaly's status or fuel projections. Advise immediately if Hickam transmits anything coherent. Yes, Mr. President. Rostova gave a crisp nod, gathered her printouts, and exited back towards the flight deck, the nerve center of the aircraft. Hayes looked around the table at the remaining figures. Cole, still simmering with anger, but his posture slightly less confrontational. Thorne observing everything with unnerving detachment. Flores looking drained but resolute. Chen, a silent sentinel by the door. Eris, Hayes said, turning to his national security advisor. That signal we intercepted, the alien one, you said it might contain information. Thorne nodded slowly. Potentially, Mr. President. Language, intent, technology, if we could decode even a fraction. No, Hayes interrupted, holding up a hand. Not decoding. General Cole's concerns about embedded threats are valid, but the sound of it, the pattern. Is there any possibility, any at all, that it wasn't hostile? Thorne considered this, steepling his fingers. Hostility is perhaps an anthropocentric projection, Mr. President. It could be anything. A beacon, a territorial marker, a simple data stream unrelated to us. A warning. A warning. The word hung in the air. A warning about what? The destruction already wrought, or something worse, something waiting within the silent void expanding before them. Keep monitoring all frequencies passively, Sergeant Carter, Hayes ordered, speaking towards the comms panel speaker, though Carter wasn't currently displayed. Everything. Log anything unusual, anything at all. But no transmissions. Understood? A disembodied, yes, Mr. President, came back instantly. Hayes sagged back in his chair, the brief surge of command authority ebbing away, leaving bone-deep weariness. They were still flying towards the unknown, towards a potential dead end over Hickam or a terrifying void in the sky. They had fuel for perhaps 10 more hours, maybe 12 if they throttled back and descended. Increasing drag, but conserving reserves. 12 hours to find a safe haven in a world that seemed determined to offer none. Below them, the Pacific stretched out, dark, vast, and indifferent. Major Frank Billings paced the cramped confines of the quarters assigned to him. He was in a space barely larger than a walk-in closet, now effectively a holding cell, held up like an animal. The 707 engines vibrating through the deck plating felt less like the sound of flight and more like a countdown. Timer! It has been what, 4 hours? 6? He wasn't given a clock, nor that the master sergeant outside was willing to disclose the time either. 43,000 feet up, hurtling towards either a known death trap at Hickam or that thing on the scope. And command was paralyzed, sticking to a pre-invasion playbook while the world burned below. Suicide. The word echoed in his skull. Tactical bloody suicide. Cole was a fossil, locked into Cold War thinking. Thorne? That snake felt wrong. Too calm. Too analytical. Pushing. For transmissions that painted a target on their backs. And the president? Hayes looked like a ghost, overwhelmed, letting Thorne whisper poison in his ear while Cole postured. None of them saw the obvious move. South. Australia. Disappear, regroup, survive. It wasn't cowardice. It was sense. He'd tried reasoning. He'd presented the tactical logic. And for his trouble? Confinement, relieved of duty, treated like a mutineer. Maybe he was a mutineer now. If upholding his oath meant ensuring the survival of someone in the chain of succession, even against orders, then so be it. He pressed his ear to the thin metal door. Footsteps in the corridor, muffled voices, the regular passage of the secret. Service detail Chen had doubtless posted. No chance there. Those guys were locked onto POTUS, programmed for loyalty above logic. But his own people, the Air Force Security Forces NCOs and airmen, the junior staffers crammed into the aft sections, scared out of their minds. They understood fear. They understood survival instincts. Henderson had to see the logic. He was a solid NCO, experienced. He'd looked uncomfortable taking the order. Billings balled his fists. Waiting was death. He had to reach someone. He banged on the door, hard. Henderson! Sergeant Henderson, get over here, we need to talk. Silence for a moment, then footsteps approaching. The small security viewport slid open, revealing Master Sergeant Henderson's weary eyes. Major, keep your voice down. You're confined to quarters. Those are the President's orders. Henderson's voice was low, stressed. To hell with the President's orders! Billings spat back, keeping his voice low but intense, pressing close to the door. Henderson, listen to me. You saw the map. That void. You heard the comms intercepts from the mainland. Hunters. Walkers. This isn't a conventional attack we can ride out in some bunker. They're everywhere. Hickam is a graveyard waiting to happen. Henderson glanced nervously down the corridor. Sir, this isn't the time or place. It's the only time, Billings interrupted, gripping the edge of the door slot. Think, man. South is the only viable option. Low strategic profile, buys us time. Australia, New Zealand, somewhere off the beaten path. We have the fuel if we turn now, but not if Cole keeps us pointed at that damn anomaly. We need to take control of the flight path, now, before it's too late. Take control? Henderson recoiled, slightly, his eyes widening. Sir, that's mutiny. Sedition. I won't... What's the alternative, Sergeant? Billings pressed, desperation making his voice raw. Following orders straight into annihilation? Is that upholding your oath? We need to relieve the flight crew, divert this plane, get the President Cole, Thorne secured. A handful of us can do it. Your security team, my guys who are still loyal, they'll follow your lead if you give the word. They trust you. Henderson shook his head, his face pale. Major, I can't. I won't. My orders are clear. Sir, you need to calm down. This stress, it's getting to everyone. Stress? Billings felt a surge of white-hot fury. Henderson wasn't just refusing, he was patronizing him. treating him like he was crazy. He saw his last chance slipping away, saw the plane continuing inexorably towards the void. You think this is stress? This is clarity, Sergeant. The clarity of knowing we're about to die because of incompetent leadership. He had to get out. He had to rally the others himself. Henderson was an obstacle. Open this door, Henderson, Billings said, his voice dangerously soft now. Sir, I can't do that. Open it, or I swear to God. Major, stand back from the door, Henderson ordered, his hand moving instinctively towards his sidearm holster, more a gesture of authority than immediate threat. That movement. That small, almost unconscious assertion of control over him. It broke something in Billings. Rational thought dissolved into pure adrenalized reaction. He has to be moved. With a roar of frustration and fear, Billings threw his shoulder against the door. It budged slightly but held fast on its magnetic lock. He drew back and slammed his boot heel near the handle mechanism. Again, then again. Metal groaned. Major, stand down! That's a direct order! Henderson shouted, fumbling now, likely for his radio or maybe drawing his sidearm. Billings ignored him, kicking again with frantic strength. He saw Henderson's hand move away from his weapon, towards the small emergency transmitter clipped to his vest. The duress signal. No. With a final, desperate heave, Billings slammed his shoulder into the door just as a crack appeared near the lock. The door buckled inwards with a screech of tearing metal, enough for him to force it open a few crucial inches. He saw Henderson, stumbling back, eyes wide with alarm, thumb mashing down on the button of the transmitter. Billings lunged through the opening, grabbing for Henderson's arm, for the transmitter, anything. Don't! They collided, a tangle of limbs and panicked grunts in the narrow corridor. Henderson tried to shove him back, yelling something incoherent. Billings grappled with him, trying to pin his arms, trying to stop that signal, trying to get past him to rally the others before Cole's dogs arrived. The fight was clumsy, brutal, fueled by desperation on both sides. Henderson was strong, resisting fiercely, protecting his transmitter, upholding his orders even as they crashed against the corridor wall. Billings landed a blow to Henderson's side, eliciting a sharp grunt, but the sergeant held fast, twisting, trying to create space. In that chaotic moment, Billings knew the signal had gone through. He heard the faint click as the button was fully depressed, maybe even saw the confirmation light blink. Too late. The thought hit him like ice water. They know. But he couldn't stop now. He had to get free. He had to try. The crackle of the open comm channel filled the conference room, punctuated by grunts, the thud of bodies hitting the bulkhead, and Henderson's strained shouts of, "Major, stop! Stand down!" Hayes gripped the edge of the table. Beside him, Maria Flores held a hand over, her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. Thorne remained impassive, observing the unfolding chaos with detached curiosity, as if watching laboratory rats fight over a piece of cheese. It was obscene. Got the door breached. Henderson is engaged. Billings resisting. Agent Davies' voice, coordinating Chen's team, was tight but professional through the speaker. Hayes felt utterly powerless, trapped in this flying command post while his own security detail fought amongst themselves miles below the stratosphere. Every sound from the speaker painted a picture of violence and desperation, threatening to shatter the fragile order holding them together. Then, Chen's voice cut through the noise, sharp and commanding. "Miller, Rodriguez, move in! Non-lethal, non-lethal! Subdue Billings! Secure the sergeant!" A hiss, the distinct electrical snap of a taser discharge, followed by a strangled cry and a heavy fall. More scuffling, shouted commands. "Get his arms, cuffs, check Henderson!" The sounds resolved into heavy breathing, the clicking of restraints, and Chen's voice again, calmer now. "Subject secured. Agent Miller, check Sergeant Henderson's status. Rodriguez, maintain perimeter. Davies, inform POTUS. Situation contained." Hayes let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Contained. For now. He nodded curtly at Flores, who relayed the confirmation back to the comms team. General Cole moved fast down the narrow corridor, Agent Chen a step ahead, his team flowing around them like water finding its level. They rounded the final bend, the scene unfolding exactly as the comms chatter indicated. The door to Billings' assigned quarters hung crookedly off its frame, metal warped and buckled near the lock mechanism. Just inside the threshold, two secret service agents, Miller and Rodriguez, had Major Billings pinned face down on the deck plating, his arms secured behind his back with flex cuffs. Billings was still struggling weakly, muttering curses, his face contorted with rage and the lingering effects of the taser jolt that had clearly taken him down. A few feet away, Master Sergeant Henderson was being helped to his feet by another agent. Henderson looked shaken, his uniform torn at the shoulder, a nasty bruise already forming on his cheekbone, and he cradled one hand protectively. His breathing was ragged, but he was upright. Chen knelt beside Billings, checking the restraints, his movements economical and precise. Major Billings, you are detained pending investigation into assault on a fellow officer and attempted mutiny. You do not speak unless spoken to. Agent Rodriguez, get him on his feet, escort him to the forward holding area, 2 agents minimum watch at all times. Cole stepped forward, his shadow falling over the subdued Major. His face was a mask of cold fury. Billings, he growled, his voice dangerously low. You stupid, treasonous son of a bitch, what in God's name did you think you were doing? Billings twisted his head, spitting onto the deck plating near Cole's immaculate boot. Saving our asses, General. Something you brass-bound fossils are too blind or too scared to do. You're flying us into a... Silence, Cole roared, taking an involuntary step closer before Chen subtly interposed himself. General, Chen said calmly, meeting Cole's glare. He's secured. Let my team handle the transport. We'll conduct a formal interrogation later with your permission, Mr. President, he added, touching his earpiece, knowing Hayes was listening. Hayes' voice came back instantly, strained but firm. Agreed, Agent Chen. Get him clear. General. Cole, I need you back in the conference room, now. Cole visibly fought for control, his jaw working. Finally, he gave a stiff nod. He watched as Rodriguez and another agent hauled the still muttering Billings to his feet and marched him away towards the front of the aircraft, disappearing around the corridor bend. Chen turned his attention to Henderson, who was now being examined by the onboard medical officer, Lieutenant Commander Isha Sharma, who must have been summoned by Chen's team. Sergeant, Chen asked quietly, report. Henderson winced as Sharma probed his wrist. Major Billing, he was trying to incite me, sir, to take the plane, divert south. Said command was compromised. When I refused, ordered him to stand. Down. He attacked me. Tried to break out. I hit the duress signal just before he breached the door. He looked shaken, but resolute. He seems to have snapped, sir. Talking about kill boxes, conspiracies, possible hairline fracture on the radius, Sergeant, Dr. Sharma interjected smoothly. And you'll have some significant bruising. We need to get you to the medical bay for imaging and proper setting. Understood, Doctor, Chen acknowledged. He looked at Henderson again. Did he mention anyone else, Sergeant? Anyone working with him? Henderson shook his head. No, sir, just general talk about people being scared, needing to act, but no specific names. All right, get him to med bay, Chen instructed Sharma and the assisting agent. He watched them help Henderson away, then turned back to Cole. General? Cole hadn't moved, staring down the corridor where Billings had disappeared. This isn't over, Chen. One man doesn't snap like that in a vacuum. Someone else put these ideas in his head or agrees with him. We need to know who. We'll investigate thoroughly, General, Chen assured him. But right now, the president needs us, and this aircraft needs to decide where it's going. Cole gave a final, disgusted look at the damaged doorframe, then turned sharply. Lead the way. The conference room door hissed open. Hayes sat at the head of the table, looking utterly drained but resolute. Flores was pale, scanning updates on her tablet. Thorne steepled his fingers, watching Cole and Chen enter with an analytical gaze that Cole found intensely irritating. The aftermath of the president's decision hung heavy in the room, a commitment to fly into the anomaly. Report, Hayes said simply, his eyes locking onto Cole. Billings is secured in the forward holding area under guard, Cole stated formally. Henderson sustained minor injuries. Confirmed Billings attempted to incite mutiny and divert the aircraft. Investigation into potential co-conspirators is warranted and necessary, Mr. President. He didn't try to hide his disapproval of their current trajectory. With respect, sir, flying into that anomaly, it's an unacceptable risk based on zero intelligence. Your objection is noted, General, Hayes replied, his voice firm despite the visible fatigue. As was Dr. Thorne's advocacy and Ms. Flores's logistical concerns. The decision is made. We face the unknown ahead rather than gamble on dwindling fuel or retreat towards confirmed devastation. Before Cole could retort, the comm panel chirped insistently. Colonel Rostova's voice filled the room again, but this time the clipped urgency was overlaid with something else. Faint surprise, perhaps confusion. Mr. President, conference. We have a change. The anomaly. It stopped expanding. A collective intake of breath. Everyone leaned forward. Stopped, Colonel? Hayes clarified. Completely? Affirmative. Sir, the boundary has stabilized for the past 3 minutes. Rate of expansion 0. It's holding its current position, roughly 35 minutes ahead of us. A pause, then. And, sir? We're detecting signals. Faint, but definitely present. From beyond the anomaly. From the direction of Hawaii. What kind of signals? Cole demanded, hope warring with suspicion on his face. Multiple types, General, Rostova reported, a new energy in her voice. We're picking up fragments of standard UHF military communication links, automated network handshakes, mostly garbled. More significantly, we have intermittent reception of a TACAN beacon navigational system, transmitting the identifier for Hickam Air Force Base. Hickam, transmitting. Hayes felt a jolt, adrenaline cutting through his weariness. Is it confirmed friendly, Colonel? Could it be a trap? Mimicry? Difficult to confirm definitively, Mr. President, Rostova admitted. The signal strength is low, subject to heavy interference, possibly atmospheric or residual. Effects from the anomaly we haven't transited yet. The encryption protocols on the handshake attempts are correct for Allied forces, but they are failing to complete the sequence, indicating system damage or partial operation at the source. The TACAN beacon itself is unencrypted by nature. It appears genuine, sir, but damaged. Thorne leaned forward, peering at the comm speaker as if he could visually dissect the radio waves. Fascinating. The anomaly stabilizes and communications. However fragmented, resume from the target area. Correlation or causation? Does it matter right now, Doctor? Cole countered, the possibility of a viable landing zone, however dangerous, overriding his earlier objections. If Hickam is even partially operational, it's our best chance. We have wounded, critically low fuel reserves relative to any other potential destination. Sir, I strongly recommend we proceed towards Hickam with all possible speed and initiate landing protocols. Hayes looked at Rostova's nameplate on the speaker grill. Colonel, your assessment? Can we reach Hickam? Can we land? Mr. President. Rostova's voice was pure pilot now, assessing risk. Proceeding on this course puts Hickam within range, assuming the base is viable. Fuel status will be critical upon arrival. Minimal reserves for go-around or diversion. Landing will be high risk given the unknown ground situation and potentially damaged infrastructure. The TACAN beacon suggests navigational aids are at least partially active, but we should anticipate a visual approach under potentially compromised conditions. If we commit now, we begin approach preparations immediately. The anomaly remains, directly in our path. We'll transit its edge in approximately 30 minutes. Its stabilization is positive, but transit effects remain unknown. Hayes processed this rapidly. The void hadn't vanished, but it had stopped growing. Hickam, previously silent, was showing faint signs of life. It was still a gamble stacked upon a gamble, but it was a destination, a concrete objective. Colonel Rostova, Hayes commanded, his voice ringing with renewed authority. Proceed on course for Hickam Air Force Base. Begin landing preparations. Immediately. Maintain constant monitoring of the anomaly and all signals from the destination area. Advise all personnel to prepare for landing in approximately. He glanced at the chronometer. 75 minutes. Brace for potential hostile action or emergency landing conditions. Wilco, Mr. President, Rostova confirmed. Initiating approach checklist. Hickam approach protocols engaged. The tenor in the conference room shifted instantly. The terrifying ambiguity of the void remained, but now it was an obstacle to overcome, not the destination itself. Flores was already tapping commands into her console, bringing up contingency plans, personnel manifests. Cole turned to Chen. Agent, Chen, full security alert. All teams on standby. We don't know what's waiting for us on the ground. I want teams ready to deploy the moment that ramp comes down. Understood, General, Chen acknowledged, relaying the orders via his earpiece. Thorne watched the flurry of activity, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. Thanks for diving into this story with me. Don't miss out on the next one. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think.